Welcome to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean. Today we have a returning special guest. It's my buddy Garrett that I work with. If you remember Garrett, he has a 5th gen 4runner and we've done several jobs on Garrett's rig. We've put rock sliders on it. We put a Gobi roof rack on it. We put a C4 dual swing out bumper on it. And now today, what we're gonna do for Garrett is we're gonna put on an aftermarket bumper on the front of his rig because it's out of balance. It doesn't look good when he's cruising the mall. People are like giving him thumbs down for not having a cool aftermarket front bumper and a winch and everything, you know? No style points. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Garrett and he's gonna describe the bumper he bought and all the other accessories he bought. And then after that, we will show you all the parts and then get started on the job.
So the front bumper that I chose was from C4, which is the same company that we had used for the rear bumper. Due to C4 being pretty awesome with their customer service, with them letting us do a video for their rear bumper and swing outs, which I am very satisfied with the quality and performance of the rear bumper. Today we're going to install a C4 front bumper. Through C4 they have multiple options on how you can have a 5th gen front bumper. The bumper I chose has a full wrap of the headlights and center grille, and it is a plated version. So what that means is with the plated version, the fog lights are encased and the full front bumper is covered compared to a model which would be tubular, which you would have more options to install more lights. Through C4, their website, gives you those options to go with. Also, you have the option of having the headlight wrap bar or none at all. So go on the website and take a look and see what option fits for you. So today I chose the full wrap with the integrated cutout for a 30-inch light bar and the cutout for the fog lights. Through C4, they're really helpful. I was able to order my Baja lights through C4. So what I ended up with was a light bar, 30-inch Baja light design, and Baja light designs for the fog lights. And I chose amber colored lenses and a street legal version fog light so I can have them on with my headlights and not blind everyone coming head on with me. The winch that I chose today is a 12,000 pound rated synthetic cord winch from Smittybilt. So now what we're gonna do is show you the bumper and all the accessories and parts that come with the bumper and everything that we're gonna install with it today.
All right, so here's a look at what the C4 bumper looks like that Garrett got. You could see my Brodozer in the background. So this would be the driver's side. You can see the spots where they have room for the fog lights. You can see where they have room for the center bar light and the winch. And then wrap around to the passenger side.
So the option that I chose is a full wrap for the headlights and the front bumper bar. Through C4 you have the option to go with no upper protection, bull bar or lighting, or you can have just the bull bar welded to the front without the headlight wrap. Other options that you get is this bumper has a full plate. Everything is enclosed. A second option through C4 would be more of a tubular version where there's more room cut out in the middle to mount multiple lights. The way that I wanted to have the bumper was one fog light, so I went with the full plated version. Also through C4 you get the option to have the 30-inch light bar cutout and the winch.
All right, now let's go and show you all the different accessories and parts that come with the kit. To start off with, this is an optional thing that you can get, and what this is basically a protector for the windshield washer reservoir. This will be hooked up and protect you from cracking your windshield washer fluid reservoir when you're four-wheeling if you hit something. Here's some hardware that comes with the kit to bolt the bumper to the frame, and then these are some brackets that come with the kit that you use to attach the bumper to the frame. All this stuff right here is part of a power steering line relocation. Currently, there's metal lines that run in the front of the AC condenser, and those metal lines are going to get in the way of the bumper and the winch coming close to the front of the vehicle. So this kit deletes those metal lines and replaces them with rubber lines, and then this power steering cooler is going to be attached to the AC condenser, and it's going to be held on with some zip ties that go through the AC condenser and the radiator, and we'll be showing how to install that. This stuff right here is so you can mount your license plate to the bumper. We have some wiring and switches that are gonna power this light bar. We have the fog lights that we're gonna be wiring up. What Garrett's plan is he wants to hook up the original wiring for the OEM fog lights to these lights. So when he turns his lights on, the fog lights will automatically come on. Another option is you can use an aftermarket switch with all the wiring and then be able to turn them on separately, but Garrett's not going to use that option. Over here we've got the synthetic line for his Smitty belt winch. This is the controller box for the winch, and then obviously this is the winch itself. So now we're going to get started on this job. Right now we have the front end jacked up off the ground. We have it supported on each frame rail with a 6-ton jack stand, and then we have wheel chocks behind both rear wheels because we are at a slight slant in my driveway. The rig can't go anywhere because of the wheel chocks, and we got the parking brake set, and so it's all secure. So now we're finally ready to get started on this job. You'll notice that we have some painter's tape with measurements on here, and what we have to do is we have to cut off a section of this bumper to make room for the new bumper. So we're going to use part of the plastic on the upper half, and we're going to get rid of the lower half. So you might be wondering, how does Garrett and I know how to do this? Well, C4 actually has a installation video for this bumper. What we're going to do in our video is we're hopefully going to be able to show a little bit more detail in some areas. We're going to show you how to affix the winch to the bumper. We're going to show you how to get the lights onto the bumper. We're going to show you how to wire everything up. Those are a few things that C4 didn't go into as great a detail that we're going to do. Basically, we're just going to kind of improve upon what they did. Their video is excellent, but we're just going to take it one little step further and show just a little more detail.
So from the first measurement, we're going to measure from the tip of the fender from the light with the tape measure, and we're going to measure down to 3 7/8 inches. We recommend wide painter's tape so you can have nice lines. Second is we're going to run right below the headlight in this flush flat area, again wrapping the tape around the contour of the fender to give you 3.5 inches. The third measurement is from the top of your fog light in the black mesh plastic to 1 5/8. The fourth measurement, again from the top of the bumper going straight down, 4 3/4 inches. On each side of the plastic center grille, you want to measure 1 1/8 inches from the top down. The next measurement is we are going to measure 1 7/8 inches from the bottom of the OEM bumper line. So with that measurement, it gives you one full segment of this plastic bumper, incorporating the 1 diamond and 1 length down. So measuring 1 7/8 inches from each section will allow you to run a full strip across evenly. Again, on both sides of the plastic mesh in the center grille, you want to measure from the top down 1 1/8 inches.
And then it's basically the same on the opposing side, all the same measurements.
On the driver's side of the bumper, we're going to start at our first measurement, and with the strip of painter's tape, we're going to run it across following the line of the body from the bumper, and we're going to run this strip of tape matching all of our measurements, making one consecutive strip of tape to make one nice even cut, making sure letting enough tape to follow the contour of the fender itself.
As soon as you're going to start spanning a wide gap, pull the tape really tight, get it to the next measurement, and then do what Garrett's doing and affix it to the bumper. He's just going to end the piece right there because he's already got the one going across the grille section in place. We're doing the same on the passenger side going towards the center. Just remember to pull it really tight while you're affixing it to the different spots, and you're going to get a nice straight line. All right, so here's the end result of us taping the bumper, getting ready to pull it off so we can cut it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the electrical connectors to the fog lights. Right now we're on the driver's side and I'm pointing at the plug. You can see that there's a little push tab facing the back of the vehicle. You push that, pull down, and you can get the plug disconnected. All right, we got that one disconnected. Now we're going to do the same with the passenger side. Now we're going to start removing a bunch of 10mm bolts that hold the bumper to the body. We're in the driver's side wheel well and we got a bunch of them right here. And we're going to work from the driver's side towards the passenger side, removing a bunch of fasteners. Garrett's going to utilize my Milwaukee M12 ratchet with a short extension and a 10mm socket, and he's going to start zipping all these out. All right, that looks like all the 10mm bolts we needed to remove. And now there's some plastic clips that we have to get unhooked to get the bumper free.
Now that we've removed the 10mm screw, we're gonna come back with a flathead screwdriver and pry up on these tabs to remove from the bumper itself.
Okay. So you can see now that the plastic wheel well liner is separated from the bumper, and we're going to do the same with the opposing side. Now we're up on top and we have to remove this whole plastic piece, and it's held in with these plastic tabs. Garrett's pointing at one right there, so you just push in the center and it releases. And he's going to do the same with all of them. Once the button is pushed, he can get underneath there and pry the tab out. And we're going to do the same with all of them. It's as simple as that. Push the little button, get underneath there with the screwdriver, and pop it up. There's also ones right near the top of the radiator that we have to get out. Same procedure. Pop the clip, get underneath it with the screwdriver, and pop it out. Once you got all the clips out, you can just lift this off. Like so. So now that we have this cover off, we've exposed more clips that we have to get disconnected. We've got one right here. We've got ones right behind the grill that we have to get at. And then we have this 10mm bolt that we have to disconnect, and we think that's finally going to be it. These tabs are a little bit different. He's just going to get underneath the little center portion and pry up with a screwdriver. And then it just pulls right out, just like that. So we're going to do the same with the rest of these fasteners. All right, so we're going to get this OEM bumper disconnected from the rig. I forgot to introduce, this is Garrett's dad, Bruce. Say hi, Bruce. So it's best to have two people doing this. So Garrett's going to start getting the bumper popped off its connection to the wheel well area, and then Bruce is going to be on the other side getting ready to help him. Garrett's going to start on the driver's side wheel well. He's going to disconnect it from these tabs in the wheel well, and then he's going to start pulling outward, breaking it free.
There it is.
So the bumper is disconnecting from this black plastic piece behind it. So now Garrett's going to go on the opposite side and break the other side free too. So being mindful of the tape, now Garrett's just going to keep on pulling the bumper away from the body. You see how it just gave away quite a bit. We're going to now get it more disconnected on the other side. We'll have Bruce switch places with Garrett, and then Garrett's going to work on getting the passenger side disconnected. Okay, Garrett's just going to pop it free. There it goes.
What do you caught on?
So it looks like it's hanging up on this one piece right here. Here we go. It was hanging up on this thing right here. So now they've got the bumper completely free, and we're going to set it over to this side on a tarp. now we got to do a bunch of cutting. Using our tape line, we're going to use a Dremel tool right here, and I have a plastic cutting disc on it. In the video that C4 made, they used a big 4-inch cutter wheel, so we're going to try the Dremel tool out and see how well it does. We're already noticing some limitations with the Dremel. Cutting right here, not a problem, but then when you get into these indentations, you can see that I'd have to really cant the blade and get an angled cut to get into these depressions. So that's why we think maybe C4 went with a bigger blade like I have on this cordless DeWalt angle grinder. So our plan is we're going to use the Dremel tool as much as we can, because you can see how I can steady my hand right up against the bumper and get a pretty clean line. And then in the areas that are deeper like this, we're going to switch to the DeWalt angle grinder to make these cuts and these depressions, like here and here too. You can see that the Dremel will have to come in at an angle, and that's not going to necessarily be that great. So we're going to use the Dremel as much as we can. Okay, we're ready to start cutting. Choose somebody with a steady hand. Don't choose somebody that just drank 5 cups of espresso and is a little shaky. Garrett's got his sunglasses on as eye protection because you don't want to get any hot pieces of plastic in your eye. That would be a bad thing. And so here he's going to start cutting with the Dremel. We've tried the Dremel out. Now I'm going to try out the DeWalt angle grinder and see how well it does in these areas where it's a little deeper. I'm not liking that. All right, we're partially done. We tried the Dremel. We tried the DeWalt angle grinder, and we didn't really like the result we were getting. The cuts were looking a little bit ugly. So then we switched to my little Milwaukee M12. It's like a Sawzall. They call it a hacksaw. And we were able to make much straighter and cleaner cuts by using the Sawzall instead of the cutting wheels. So that's how we're going to do it the rest of the way. Garrett's going to do a little down cut here to complete this cut, and then we're going to go straight across. Okay. It was just flexing too much. Cool. This plastic was flexing too much for the Sawzall to get a cut through, so as soon as I supported this a little bit, it was able to complete the cut, and luckily he didn't saw my finger off. We're thinking that we're going to leave the center portion of the grill intact for right now, and we're going to attack the other side first and then finish in the center by cutting the grill. So you can see once he gets to here, you're gonna get extra resistance because you're going through more material. So just notice that when you get to there, it's gonna take a little bit longer to get through the material. There's just too much vibration right here for the blade to cut with the Sawzall, so Garrett's just going to finish it off with the Dremel. Okay, now we're going to work on the center grill section. He's going to start on this corner, and then we're just going to cut all these tabs. We noticed that the plastic is flexing a lot, making it harder to cut, but I'm supporting it, and then hopefully the blade's going to be able to cut through, and I have the blade a little bit of an angle instead of perpendicular. Okay, I'm through that one. I've already cut one right here, and now I'm just going to support the plastic with my one hand and cut with the other. I'm hooking my fingers in the plastic grill, putting my thumb against it to where I can support it to get a straight cut. There's too much vibration. We're just going to finish off this final cut with the Dremel. Okay, we finally have this thing separated. So now you can see that you have all this little burrs of plastic, and so if you just take your fingers and pull it off, you can get a lot of these little pieces off. How pretty you want to make this is going to be up to you. You can grab a little sander wheel on your Dremel, or you could just take a fine file and clean up these edges and get it as smooth and as nice as you want. So personal preference. Some other cutting that we have to do for the bumper is we're gonna cut off everything below this line. So the instructions say you just take a piece of tape, take it right to the bottom of this bolt hole, and we're just gonna cut right along the top of that painter's tape. So we need to take this off. It's a 10mm bolt here and a 10mm bolt here, and then we can pop this off. So once you got the two 10mm bolts out, this thing just pops out. Get your fingers behind here, pull out. It seems to want to get stuck on the center one. Just got to use a little brute force and pop these clips out. We're just going to use our Dremel with a plastic blade to cut this. There we go. We're going to do the same with the other one. Once you get it cut, you just want to get these pieces back in. Just cinch it up snug and call it good. We're going to do the same with the other side. So now we're going to remove these air dams. There's one on each side. This is the passenger side, and then we got one on the driver's side. There's another plastic tab on each one, a single one. He's going to pop it and then get it out. And then that should be it. You should be able to pull this thing straight back. So there's some other little tabs in here. You just got to pry it out of the body and then it's going to come out. You'll figure it out. There we go. And we're going to do the same with this one. The next step that we need to do is we need to remove this part of the bumper. This is actually the metal part of the bumper that's giving the front end of the vehicle protection. The plastic is just making this look pretty, but this is the strength behind the bumper. And in the C4 video, they don't show having to remove this because the vehicle that they were working on already had an aftermarket bumper on it, so they didn't show removing this, but we're gonna have to. This foam piece is just gonna come off, I think. Just like that, it plugs in. We'll get this out of our way. And then we have these fasteners. We have 3 bolts on one side, and then we have one on the other side on both frame rails. We also have this little plastic tab that we're going to have to disconnect to get the fender liner disconnected, and then this whole piece will be able to come off the rig. As you can see, you can't get a impact gun in here because there's no room to get it in. If you had a powerful air ratchet, maybe it would work, but my Milwaukee ratchet doesn't have the kind of breaking free strength that these bolts will need. So what Garrett's going to use is he's going to use this long 14mm box end wrench from Gear Wrench, and he's going to break these free. Once you got them fairly loose, if you have something like a Milwaukee M12 ratchet, then you can quicken the removal by switching to the ratchet and zipping them out. All right, we're going to do the same with the other 3 fasteners. There's no need for you to see it. We've got 3 bolts removed on both sides, the 3 outside ones. We still have the inside ones attached, but they're loose. Before we remove those, we're going to get this tab disconnected from the wheel well liner. I thought it was a clip, but it's actually a 10mm screw. Now we're finally ready to get this steel part of the bumper off. Garrett's gonna use the ratchet. I'm gonna hold one side. He's gonna be holding the other, and we're gonna get this thing off safely. Okay, and we should be able to just pull this off. Like so. So the kit, like we showed at the beginning, has a power steering cooler that's going to replace this metal line. The power steering cooler is going to go right about here right against the AC condenser. So we're going to start disconnecting different spots where the power steering line is connected. So one is right here. Another is right here. Another one is right here on the driver's side frame. When we get into the wheel well, it's going to depend what kind of suspension system you have. So because Garrett has front shocks with external reservoirs, we're going to have to disconnect this reservoir from its bracket so we can get behind here to get to other parts of the power steering line that we need to disconnect. So basically, the whole process is to get this metal power steering line out of the way so there's more room for the bumper and the winch to come into position on the front of the rig. With this metal line here, you can see it wouldn't work. So that's why they have this relocation kit to change this line to rubber lines and have a cooler on the AC condenser. The same goes for some fasteners on the passenger side. We have to release a bolt here. And then we got to get in here in the engine bay on the passenger side, and we have to disconnect the hose to the power steering reservoir and replace that as well. So because Garrett does have the external reservoirs, we're now going to remove these on each side.
Shouldn't put any stress on it.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about doing any damage to the lines. These lines are pretty burly. It could just hang here while we get in here to disconnect some of the power steering stuff. So you can see this bracket that comes with the icon lift. This might get in our way, but we're going to try to work around it. The next thing we have to do is we're going to get this mud flap in the wheel well disconnected. It's held on by these little plastic tabs. I have this special tool that helps removing tabs like this. You can get behind it and then pop them out. If you don't have something like this, then you could just use a regular flat blade screwdriver. It does look like that this icon bracket's going to get in our way a little bit, but we're going to try to work around it so we don't have to take the skid plate off and take this off. So we're going to see if we can make it work. If not, we are going to have to disconnect this sway bar, which we don't want to do. So because that icon external reservoir bracket was in the way on the driver's side, we are going to come in from the top. This bolt right here that holds the power steering bracket to the driver's side frame, we're going to release that from the top just using a bunch of long 3/8 extensions with a 12mm socket. Okay, that bracket bolt is out. Now we're going to go for the one that's on the front. We're still on the driver's side. Okay, now you can see that this is pretty loose. And now we're going to work our way and get these other ones that attach the power steering line to the body on the front side. So it ends up these bolts that attach the line to the body on the front are 10mm, not 12mm. I'll switch to the Milwaukee and zip it out the rest of the way. I think I could just get this with the Milwaukee. It might be strong enough. Yeah, they're not in there that tight. And you can see I already removed this one. So the line is completely free now on the front of the truck. We're now on the passenger side. Here's the power steering reservoir. And if you look down to where my extensions are going, there's a bolt that's attaching a bracket that holds a power steering line to the passenger side frame. So I just got a bunch of 3/8 extensions strewn together with a 12mm socket, and I'm going to take that bolt out. And let's see if I can get my hand in here to grab it. Yep, I got it. So it's just another one of these 12mm bolts. The line, you can see I'm flopping it here. Now it's completely disconnected from the body and the frame. So right down here, we have to disconnect the metal line from the rubber line, and it has a constant tension clamp. We tried to get his skid plate off, but unfortunately somebody that worked on his truck stripped out one of the bolts really bad, and we can't get it out, and we don't want to spend the time right now to drill it out. So it's going to be a little bit harder because the constant tension clamp, the little fins on it are pointing downward, and that's why we wanted to get the skid plate out of the way. So I'm going to get in there with 90 degrees needle nose pliers and see if I can back off that constant tension clamp to where we can free the metal line. So I was able to get underneath the constant tension clamp, squeeze it with the bent nose needle nose pliers, and I'll slide it back on the hose. It's just a little hard to get in there from the top, but it's doable. Okay, that constant tension clamp is back off enough to where we can free it of this metal line. Now we're going to work on disconnecting some of these connections right here. So we're going to isolate this one metal section. So we're going to compress this constant tension clamp, move it up out of the way, and then we're going to use a hose pick tool to help break the connection free so we can pull this off. And you want to have a catch basin ready to go because power steering fluid is going to come out. So you get it between the rubber line and the metal, and you just work it around the side and you break it free. Once you have it worked all the way around, you probably will be able to pull it off. Yep, it's coming off. I'm going to do a little bit more of the tool. Okay, here comes the fluid. So we're still on the driver's side and we're getting the metal line disconnected from in the engine bay. And so if you're by yourself, you can do what I'm doing. I'm leaning over the top of the engine. I'm on a step stool. I'm holding the rubber line, and then I'm reaching my arm in front and I'm grabbing this line and twisting it and pulling out towards the front of the rig. Now you can get this line snaked out the rest of the way. In the C4 video, what they did to help get more fluid out is they took a screwdriver and they put it inside here, and then they just bent this tube down. I thought it would be kind of cool to salvage this tube, so maybe you can put it up for sale, or you know somebody that got in a front end collision and might need this part. So we figured we'd try to save it. And I'll just let this drain out a little bit more. It looks like all the fluid's out. So you can see I put a red silicone plug in here. It was dripping a little bit, and because we couldn't get the skid plate out of the way, it's kind of making a mess on the skid plate. So I just plugged it, and then when we're ready to connect up the new line, I'll take the plug out. I'm now going to disconnect this constant tension clamp on the passenger side, slide it up the hose. Then I'm going to use the pick tool to break it free. And more fluid is leaking out. So now we have this whole line free. I'll just hang it over the drain pan. Looks like pretty much most of it's out, so we're good to go with this. The last connection we gotta disconnect to get this OEM power steering line disconnected is right at the reservoir. It's another constant tension clamp. I'm gonna get in here with my bent nose needle nose pliers, compress it, and move it down. It's a little tighter on this side, but you can do it. Okay, that's moved out enough. I'm gonna get my pick tool in between the plastic housing of the reservoir and break the tube free a little bit. I think I'm gonna switch to a smaller one. I'm gonna use this smaller pick tool. It's gonna work a little better, I think. Okay, got it between there. Work it around the whole circumference. Okay, I think I got it loosened up and I can pull it off. This reservoir is plastic, so be mindful about it. Support it with one hand while you're pulling with the other. Okay, it's free. We can pull this line out. So I just have to work it out this direction. There's another bracket that you have to work your way out of here. It looks like this bracket from inside the engine bay is going to hang us up. I'm going to disconnect the bracket from the line here and try to pull it up through the top. This just will come off, and now let's see if it will work to bring it up through the top. No.
It will well.
Oh, there we go. Finally got it. I think the C4 guys had an easier time. I can't remember if they removed this bracket inside the engine bay or it was the fact that they bent this straight that made it a little easier, but we finally got it out. So we're going to put one end of this hose coupler in this line on the driver's side. I'm in the driver's side fender well, and so I'm going to take my plug out. I'm gonna slip over one of the hose clamps and I'm gonna try to figure out, okay, which direction will it be good for me. I think I'm gonna get actually my screwdriver on there, kind of tighten it up right there so it won't slide down the hose on me, and then I'm gonna get this in there. I have the coupler connected to the line in the engine bay, so now we're gonna grab a section of the supplied hose and we're gonna couple that to this side. You'll see that it's got these weird yellow discs, and it appears that they are meant to go with this coupler. I thought about removing them, but they kind of look like they're meant to be there, so I just kept them on. So now what we're gonna do next, we're just gonna take a utility blade and we're gonna make a little slit in this foam piece right here to where we can route the hose through. Just like so, just a little slit. So now I'm gonna stuff the hose through, stuff it in the hole. Okay, now we're gonna go back to the fender well. So we finally got the supplied hose that's 4 feet long coupled to the hose that's on the driver's side of the motor. Getting the barb coupler through the OEM hose, not a problem. Getting it slid over the supplied hose that comes with the kit was pretty difficult. We actually needed 2 people to make it happen. One of us held the line on this side from the fender well. The other one got in from the top and pushed and twisted over and over again, and we finally got it all the way down the barbed coupling. We got the hose clamps in place, and now we're gonna move on to the next step. Now with the other provided shorter hose that comes with the kit, we're gonna feed this through on the passenger side. So you see this AC condenser line right here. We're just gonna go right underneath it, and then we're gonna bring it up and we're gonna connect it up to the nipple on the reservoir. It'd probably be good to lubricate this with a little bit of fluid, so I'm just gonna take some from the drain pan and put some on this fitting to make it easier to slip the hose over. You wanna get your clamp in place and in the direction that you think is gonna be easiest for you to get a screwdriver, a little socket on there. And then let's work this over the fitting. Support the reservoir because it's plastic. You don't want to break it. Yep. It's all the way slid onto the nipple. Now I'll get the hose clamp in place. This connection at the reservoir is a low pressure return, so this doesn't have to be crazy tight. So it just has to be snug, and that's gonna be good enough to make it leak free. So now that we have our hoses ran where we need them to go, we're gonna hook up the power steering cooler to the AC condenser. And the way it affixes to the AC condenser is we use these long kind of zip tie things. It's going to push through the AC condenser, then it's going to push through the radiator, and then on the back side, on the inside of the radiator facing the engine, we're going to put these little clips on to hold everything in place. This is the special type of zip tie. We're going to push it through, and we're going to push the other one through. On the side that's facing the AC condenser, we're going to put these little foam pads. It's got a little glue-on strip, so you can peel it off. And then there's a hole that's already kind of drilled, and you'll be able to see it when you get your eyes on it. But where we see that little white dot is, that hole will punch out. So if I put it over the top here, it will push right through. We're going to glue it right to the cooler, just like that. Now what we have to do is we have to figure out exactly where we want this on the AC condenser. Garrett and I already held this up, and we were checking to make sure that wherever we put it, the hoses would reach. So we found out that on this side of the cooler, if it's pretty much right on the edge of this bracket right here, that's about the right spot, that this is going to have enough room to reach. In a sideways mounted cooler, you want it filling from the bottom and exiting out the top. As it fills up, it's going to push any trapped air in the cooler, and then it will come out the top. And this hose that hooks up to the top is the one that goes back to the reservoir. If you look closely here, you'll see horizontal lines with the ground. That's where the refrigerant is traveling through. the little fins in between are the cooling fins. So as air travels through the AC condenser, those little cooling fins are what is enabling the refrigerant to get cooled off and turn back into a liquid. And then the same type of cooling fins are on the radiator, and those cooling fins are helping conduct heat away from the coolant. So that's how it works. The fluid is flowing through parallel to the ground, and then in between are the cooling fins. So we're going to push this through the cooling fins, and so we have to figure out which channel we want. So we have the cooler push through the cooling fins, and we're in the same channel across here. So you want it straight, so we are in the same cooling fin channel. So right now I'm flicking one end of one of the zip ties. You have to next get this little thing slid over. So it's got two distinct sides. This side with the little nubs are gonna face the radiator, and then this side right here is gonna face the engine. So you have to lean over the engine, slide it over the zip ties, and then push it up against the radiator cooling fins to get the zip ties tight. What I'm doing is, once I slid it over, one hand is holding the end of the zip tie, the other hand is pushing the little disc along the zip tie towards the radiator. Okay, I've got this one started on the passenger side. Now I'm going to go for the one that's more towards the center. We've got both of the tabs installed on the ends of the zip ties, but we don't have them tight just yet. We want to leave a little bit of wiggle room to allow us to have an easier time getting the hoses connected up to the nipples. So that's what we're going to do next. We have all the hoses connected, and now I'm going to show you the routing. Starting at the reservoir, we have the supplied shorter hose connected here, and it routes through the body right here. We put a little section of hose, I bought some at O'Reilly's, for some abrasion protection through this part of the body. We put a little bit over on this side too. This side won't really matter because the hose is too tight to get that far. I took some thicker hose, some 5/8 hose, and I cut sections off as abrasion protection. I slit the hose, and so everywhere the hose is going to rub against some metal, I'm protecting it. So right here, I've got a section, zip tied it to the cooler hose to protect it from the body here. Right here, I have a section of hose that's going in between this hose and the AC condenser. So maybe some vibrations, especially if you're going four-wheeling, could abrade the hose. So I got extra protection here. Then I attached the two hoses together with a zip tie right here. I've also got a section of hose for abrasion protection where it attaches to this center cross member. So the section of hose is protecting here, and I've got the hose zip tied to this cross member. On this driver's side, we have another section of hose to protect it against rubbing against the body. And then we have a couple pieces of extra hose that are put into the body to protect the hose from rubbing up against any sharp edges. Coming in from the driver's side wheel well, we put a piece of the 5/8 hose basically right around the area where the hose coupler attaches the two hoses together, and then we zip tied the hose to the AC line that runs to the AC condenser. That's where we have it secured here. In the video that C4 made, they were able to attach it to some KDSS lines here, but since Garrett doesn't have KDSS, we didn't have that opportunity. So we figured the best spot was hooking it up to the AC line, and it's nowhere close to rubbing against the belt, so it's safe from being damaged by the belt. After you have the zip ties tight, get in there with a pair of wire cutters and cut off the excess for those zip ties so they don't smack into the cooling fan. Just get in there with a small pair of little cutters and clip them off. We didn't show it because it's really difficult to get the camera in there. You'll understand what you need to do when you're laying on top of your motor doing it yourself. Now that we have all the lines connected, we have to refill the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a fluid that's compatible with Dextron 3. What I have in my house that was available is a Dexmerc, and a Dexmerc is compatible with Dextron 3. So we're going to pour some in using a small little funnel with a very narrow tip to fit into the reservoir. So I have it purposely overfilled because What we're now going to do is we're going to get inside the vehicle. We're going to turn the wheel back and forth, lock to lock, with the engine off. You don't want to turn the engine on just yet. So we're going to turn it lock to lock, and we're going to see this level drop as the air works its way out of the system. We have Bruce, our helper, turning the wheel back and forth, and you can see that the level is dropping. Okay, stop right there, Bruce. If it starts getting a little too low in your reservoir, top it off again, because you don't want to run it dry, because that's just going to add more air into the system. And then now we're going to turn it a few more times. And I see the level is still dropping, so there's still air in the system. Okay, it doesn't look like it's dropping anymore. So I think we're good to start the vehicle now. So now that we have most of the air out of the system, Garrett's going to start up the motor, and then we're going to see if the level drops a little bit more. He's going to turn the wheels lock to lock a couple times, and then we're going to check the fluid after he's done. Stop! We started up the engine and the level dropped more than we thought it would, so we stopped the engine. We topped off the fluid a little bit more. Now Garrett's going to start it again. Go ahead. So after running the engine, turning the wheels lock to lock a couple times, the level dropped a little bit more, but now it's pretty much at about the perfect level, somewhere in between the cold minimum and cold maximum lines. We're at a little bit of a slant, so once we get it back on flat ground, we'll know better if the level is good. And because this is transmission fluid, the reason why they have a cold and a hot level is because the fluid will expand when it gets warmer. So once you're done running the engine and getting the power steering fluid at the proper level in the reservoir, go through and check all your connections. So we're at the cooler, the upper and lower connections, look for leaks. They both look good. Before you'd get the rubber mud guard and your reservoir back in here, if you have external reservoirs, you'd want to make sure that that coupling connection is leak-free also. All right, so we finally have the power steering part of this job all buttoned up. The level is at the right level now after we bled the system of air. And now the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna work on some of the wiring we're gonna have to do to get the fog lights working when Garrett turns on his headlights. And then we're gonna start doing some stuff with the bumper itself, getting the accessory lights on and getting the winch connected.